Thank you for joining us on the Ultimate Leadership Podcast. Now, here he is, your host, Chris Cebollero.
Oh my goodness. Once again, it is time for the Ultimate Leadership Podcast, and I am so very excited. And if you're watching this is my excited face. I got to tell you, man, little by little, I've been spending a lot of time helping people with employee engagement. We know that we have to be successful as leaders. The true measurement of leadership success is how engaged, satisfied, and productive your workforce is. There are no other characteristics that are going to define a leadership success than engagement, satisfaction, and productivity. So it makes no difference what you're doing as leaders. We've got to be able to get the very best out of the workforce so we can ensure that we are measuring our true leadership success. But the Gallup organization will tell us that almost 3/4 of our workforce is either disengaged or actively disengaged. So how are we now going to be successful as leaders when almost 3/4 of our workforce is not even wanting to be there or just going through the motions of being engaged? Well, I got to tell you, I've got a guest here today, and she is going to give us the finer points. Really, we're going to get microscopic now when it comes to employee engagement, when dealing with the leader. The most effective leaders inspire, engage, they empower, and they put their focus on those they lead. And the ones who do it the best also do the internal work of leading themselves first. So when we think about this from an engagement standpoint, how engaged is that leader? She is an author. She is a speaker and a coach, Tracy Bianco. She shares the 5 choices with us that we can all make to lead ourselves first on our way to be the leader that others will want to follow. And Tracy, I want to thank you for joining us on the Ultimate Leadership Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's going to be fun. And I think, when we talk about employee engagement, we know that the success of a leader really has to be with the engagement of our workforce. And I think it's one of the things that we most often overlook. I think my first question I want to ask you in this area of your expertise is, what's the biggest misconception about employee engagement?
I think the biggest misconception is that employee engagement is literally about the goals that the organization has set. How do we get those folks on the team? How do we get those employees meeting the goals that have been set? Of course, completely understandable. And when they're working on those goals, they will, of course, be completely engaged 100% every single day. And what we don't often think about is the fact that those people that are working toward the goals and the leaders that are working to have those employees engaged, we all bring things with us every single day, whether we're working remotely at this point, whether we're going into an office to work. We've got other things going on. Our brain is working so fast every single day. We're not always engaged with the work that we've been hired to do. And the leaders don't always tune into what else is going on for these folks on the team. That's the work that I do.
And I think that's really interesting when we start to think about that. So really what you're going to give us today is the keys for the leader to become more prepared to deliver employee engagement. Usually when we talk about employee engagement, we're giving tips to the leader that says, okay, active listening, okay, get them involved in the process, okay. But you're really going to polish us a little bit to say, you can't even consider employee engagement if you're missing these components. And I think the first thing that when you give us, these 5 areas to focus on, the first one is self-belief and self-doubt. Come on, don't tell me leaders have self-belief and self-doubt, Tracy.
Well, one of the things that's so interesting about the choices that I'm here to share today is that each one of them, when we hear the choices, we think, well, yeah, duh, that's so obvious, right? But the reality is leaders do have self-doubt. And I would even go so far as to say every leader has at least some self-doubt on any given day. In his book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, author Patrick Lencioni talks about the importance of the leader going first. when it comes to being vulnerable, when it comes to the inner work. So tying this back to choosing self-belief over self-doubt, I look at the self-doubt that I have as this being that comes and sits on my chest. So when I am leading a presentation, whatever it might be, this being comes, sits on my chest and says things to me like, you don't know what you're doing. Look at those really important people in the audience. Is this really going to go the way you want it to? All of those thoughts are that self-doubt coming through. And the question that I ask myself now when I feel that self-doubt coming through is, who's in the driver's seat here? Because that being that feels like it's on my chest because my chest gets tight and I have difficulty breathing and all the physical symptoms, I also have the power, the ability, the influence to take that self-doubt, put it in the passenger seat, say, hey, I see you, I hear you, I know that you're here to protect me. I don't need that right now, so you stay there in the passenger seat. I'm in the driver's seat. I'm going to run with this with belief in myself rather than that doubt that likes to seep through.
So talk to me about this, though. When you start to think about this from a professional development standpoint, I mean, how much of that self-doubt can be fixed if leaders remember they've got to continue the growth process in developing their skills? I mean, it's the same thing with our workforce, right, Tracy? I mean, they come to us with a set of skills. They come to us with a set of experience. And it's our job as leaders to grow them and to get them to the next phase. But a lot of times leaders are forgetting themselves in that professional development process as well. I mean, it would seem that self-belief and self-doubt could really be overcome with some more professional development.
That's exactly true. So it couldn't be any more true. And I think that the biggest objection I hear when I get a phone call from an organization who wants to improve the results that their team is getting, the biggest objection I hear from the leader, who oftentimes is the person that's reaching out to me, is, well, I want to fix them. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm doing well. I'm the leader. I know what I'm doing. Can you fix my team? Can you help them manage their time and communicate more effectively and all the things? And part of the way that I help my clients is to bring that leader in as well. And when that leader lets me know, I don't have time for this, look how busy my schedule is, my answer is, you don't have time to not move forward with this. When I was working for an organization in various leadership roles, I worked every single day on the external results that were expected from me through my team for my superiors and the organization as a whole. I worked on all of the external pieces, not even thinking about what was going on inside of me. Now that I'm gone from that particular employment situation, I realize that what held me back at the time was the internal stuff that was going on. Had I reached out to a professional to help me with that personal development, which crosses the bridge into professional development, they're one and the same for the most part, that self-belief in me would have risen and my team and I would have gotten much better results.
Very interesting stuff. So let's switch gears a little bit, because one of the things that I want you to talk about next is a lot of times leaders are not, skillful at taking blame. You know, we hear that all the time, that we've got to take all the blame and give all the credit. How does this hinder us from being great in employee engagement?
Yeah, it hinders us so much. I look at this as a choice of responsibility versus blame. So you're leading a team and the team falls flat with whatever the goal is, the project deadline, whatever it might be. They fall flat, they don't succeed. The truly effective leaders are the ones who are looking at, let's really dissect what happened with this client project. Let's really talk about what happened here. And in that moment, the person leading the team can blame circumstances and people that could be attributed to why that project failed, or the person leading that team can take full responsibility and ask, what is my part in this? What can I do to improve these current results? How can I better engage the folks on my team? How can I better help them learn and grow, which helps me learn and grow? How can I take responsibility and not fall into that blame game?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think it's one thing that we really have to pay attention to. Your number 3 is clarity over confusion. I'm interested. I tried to figure out what that was before we chatted, but I'm done thinking about it. So just tell me.
Well, the first thing is nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, gosh, I hope I'm really confused today. I hope it's a really confusing day. But a simpler way to think about this is, how often do you say or think in the course of a day, I don't know. Somebody poses a question. I don't know. You think, how do I want to move forward with this particular plan? I don't know. So the I don't know answers that we come up with almost automatically, that's the confusion, of course. That's like a heavy fog. We wake up in the morning, the fog is so thick, we're crossing our fingers that we get to our destination on the road that we want to get to. The clarity, of course, is when the fog lifts. We live in confusion more often than we're willing to admit or that we would even think about. We have a clear plan, we run into an obstacle, we stop the clear plan, move on to something else, use our time we come back to the plan, and I still don't know what I'm going to do with that. So that whole clarity over confusion, and the question that I ask myself, and now I ask my clients, when I get that answer, I don't know, from myself or my clients, I instantly ask, but if you did know, what would the answer be? And for me personally, it's such a powerful question. I get stuck in work that I'm doing with a client or a proposal that I'm putting together. I get stuck and I want to quit. I want to go do something else, some kind of busy work. Nope, Tracy, you do know. If you did know the answer, what would it be? How do you push through this and not let that confusion hold you back? So you picture a leader within a workplace. Let's say there are 6 people on the team that leader is leading, and there's one person on the team who seems to be, let's just say, maybe a slower learner than some of the others on the team. We get confused about things like that. Hey, let's say Dan on the team, I'm not going to give this to him because he doesn't really get it. I'm confused about what's going on there. I'm just going to keep filtering these things to Sarah because Sarah always knows what she's doing. Stop there in the moment. Bring that clarity to yourself, the leader. What is it that Dan needs? Are there resources that I haven't yet made available? More time with me. What is it that will help us get past this point so Dan can be more, not only a more engaged member of the team, but a more instrumental part of the team?
And really a more engaged member of the team. I mean, one of the things that we have to remember is that I kind of mentioned it earlier. They come to us with a set of skills. They come to us with a set of experience. And what this person is going to be able to do may be